Hey, everybody, welcome back. I am thrilled to be with you today, and I want to ask you a question. If we all have the same 24 hours in a day, why do some people seem to create results while others stay stuck in busy mode? What's the difference? So, today I think we're going to dive into the mindset and the methods behind one of the most powerful productivity books I've ever read. And that is The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And I have to tell you, it's not just another time management hack. This book can truly change the way you live and work for good. So, let's get into it. The first thing I want to really kind of dive into is the power of one. And that's a big idea that runs through the book. And Gary Keller asks this one question that truly changes everything. And we will put this question in the show notes because I know if you're like me, you might be driving right now. So I'm going to give you as much content as I can to help you navigate some of these concepts. So here's the question. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? So let that land for a second and understand that the question is really about focus. It's not about doing all the things, it's about doing the right thing, the thing that moves the needle. We live in a world that glorifies something called multitasking and constant motion. But productivity isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters most. That's a big one for some of us. I get it because I think a lot of us have convinced ourselves that if we can just check off a lot of boxes, we're being of value to our company, our organization. We are really servicing people when we can just be busy all the time. But again, it is not productive if you're not moving the needle. And so true productivity is not about doing more, it's about doing what matters most. So now, if you ask yourself, what's the one thing in my business or life that if I really focused on it would create a domino effect of momentum? That's probably one of the most powerful questions we can ask ourselves at any time. And I'm going to say it again. What's the one thing in your business or life that if you really focused on it would create a domino effect of momentum? Now, I know that a lot of times when we think about productivity, we think about time management. At some point, we'll start to think about blocking our time in our calendar. So I will say this, if you're going to accomplish big things, know that your one thing, whatever you just found out by asking that question, is important enough that you have to protect it. So this is where the time blocking comes in. I want you to think of it like making an appointment with your future success and keeping it like it's the most important meeting of your day. You've done it before. You've made appointments and you've kept them, right? So when you really get clear about your one thing, you have to treat that with the utmost of importance. You have to protect the time for it. And here's the secret. The most successful people don't find the time, they make the time. See, if you're always looking to find time, you're not going to find it. But if you make the time, it will happen. So successful people know that and they carve out the hours, not just the minutes, for what matters most. So in the book, Gary recommends blocking 4 hours a day. Now, maybe that seems like a lot for some of us and you're not quite there yet, but you could start with at least 1 hour for your one thing, right? So if you could give your best energy to your most important priority before the world starts demanding your attention, which would be probably before 11 a.m. or noon, what could you accomplish? So if you took that one thing and you made that a priority and you carved out the time for that to happen first thing in the morning, where could you be in a week's time? What results could you start seeing in a couple of weeks? How far do you think you might move the needle in a month, in 2 months? You get my point? So It's about giving your best energy to the most important priority and knowing that you have to protect that time, which means that you have to be good about saying no to the interruptions. Now, I've coached a lot of people around this concept and around time and productivity. And it's interesting because I think a lot of us get hung up on the interruptions and how to manage the interruptions. And I think what it clearly just boils down to, sometimes you just can't manage the interruption itself. You have no control when it's showing up. Like you don't know when that phone's going to ring. You don't know when someone's going to knock on your door or send you an email. But what you can control is how you respond to it. No is a complete sentence. So it's about really you being able to block the interruption and say, no, I'm in my zone. I'm in my focus mode. I'm working on my one thing. Can you come back later? Maybe it's about muting your phone, putting it on do not disturb, close all the tabs on your computer, right? Let people around you know that you're in that focus mode. Guard that time like a bulldog with a bone. You know you can because you've done it for other things. But why not do it for your most important thing? That one thing that you came up with when I asked you that question just a minute ago. Something else that will help you, and something that I definitely want to debunk today, is the fact that multitasking is a myth. I want you to understand that multitasking is a lie. It's not something that we should strive to be proud of. It's not about juggling all these things and showing the world that we can manage all these tasks at once. Because if we think we're being productive when we're at the same time juggling an email, a message, a task, being in a meeting, and all the things that I think a lot of us find ourselves being guilty of in a day, we realize that we're not giving any of those things 100% of our attention. And science has proved it. Science has proved that every time our brain has to switch from one task to another, it is draining our brain power. And it will take you much longer and it will feel harder to go back to something. And sometimes because of that, we don't ever really go back to it. And we find that we are probably not as efficient, not as effective, and maybe not as accurate as we could be. That's when mistakes happen. That's when we miss opportunities. We hear half a conversation. So we're on a different page, creating possible misunderstandings or even conflict. So the next time you're tempted to do just one more thing during your focus time, please don't. Or anytime, honestly, if you have convinced yourself that you are of huge value to your organization because you pride yourself on being a multitasker, please stop. It is not helping you get where you want to be. And you're probably really fooling yourself by thinking that multitasking is an opportunity to be more productive. It's just a myth. So, what is the goal? It's to do one task at a time. One task, one goal, one moment. That's how any successful person does it. And I think that's how you will find that you will be most effective, is when you focus on one thing at a time and give it the time it truly needs. So, for a lot of us, lead generation, prospecting is an important part of growing our business. That should be a high priority. That should be a time on our calendar that we have every day, but that we also commit to and protect. And so we can't be multitasking during that time because we won't get to speak to as many people, or we won't really move the needle. We won't really make things happen in the way that they could if we had the focus on it. So that's an important aspect of understanding that whatever that one thing is now has to show up on your calendar. You have to time block for it and you have to protect it. And protecting it means that you realize that multitasking is a myth. The other thing that Gary talks a lot about in the book, and I think it's important for me to share it with you here, is this understanding the domino effect, right? So I think this is probably one of my more favorite metaphors in the book. So if you could picture a tiny domino, got it? You see it? You picture the tiny domino? Now picture a huge one, like one that is 10 times the size of that small one. If you line them up right, that tiny one can tip the big one over. Success works the same way. When you focus on your one thing consistently it sets off a chain reaction. And you start to understand that little wins lead to big wins and progress compounds. So instead of trying to slay the dragon in one swoop and tackle the big hill in one leap, understanding that the little domino you knock over will continue to knock over other bigger dominoes, that's when you realize that success compounds because your progress compounds. So don't underestimate the power of starting small. Because the key is start small, start right now, start today, start wherever you are, and then stay consistent. Allow those dominoes to keep knocking over the next bigger one. So find your domino and tip it over every day. Another thing that Gary talks about in the book, and we're going to probably dig into this one a little bit more in an upcoming episode, is the fact that we have 4 thieves of productivity. The first one is our inability to say no. Like I was saying to you just a minute ago, that the interruptions show up. It's not the interruption that is stealing our productivity. It's the fact that we couldn't say no to it, right? And it's understanding that sometimes what we say no to allows us to do other things. And so when you say no to one thing, you might be saying yes to something else that is much more in alignment with what you say you want to do. Because think of it this way, if everything mattered, then nothing would matter. Let that sit for a minute. If everything matters, nothing does. So protect your yes by mastering your no. The second thing that will rob you of your productivity is your fear of chaos. Look, some of us are very comfortable in chaos, and other people are determined to have a very streamlined approach to their day every day. And I can respect whichever side of that spectrum you might be on. But when you focus on your one thing, you have to understand that other things will slide, and that's okay. So it means that some things might get messy. It means that you might feel that things get a little bit out of your control. And if you could be more okay with that, if you could embrace the messiness, if you could embrace the chaos and not be afraid of it, you will find that as you focus on your one thing, some of the other stuff that you're not putting time and energy on will figure itself out somehow. Or you can delegate it to someone else. So it's okay if things get a little chaotic or a little messy as you are really developing the focus on your one thing. The third thing, this was really powerful for me when I read the book. The third thing that Gary talks about in terms of the thieves, the 4 thieves that will rob you of your productivity. It's so simple and profound. Poor health habits, that's number 3. Your energy fuels your focus. Your energy is a huge part of your ability to sustain success because if you have poor health habits, if you are not sleeping well, if you're not moving your body, exercise, right? If you're not fueling the body, eating the right things, if you're allowing the stress to get high and then medicating it in some way with TV, scrolling, alcohol, whatever, then you're not at your optimum health. And so your poor health habits will absolutely have a huge effect on your productivity. So that is one of your thieves too. And then finally, number 4, an environment that doesn't support your goals. I talked about this on a previous episode of Mojo. You know what? We'll link the show in the notes for you. So if you want to listen to that episode, it wasn't that long ago when I talked about your environment supporting your goals. And Gary talks about it here in the one thing. You know, you have to be honest and take stock or take inventory of the people, the places around you. Are the people and places around you supporting you, pulling you forward? Or are they distracting you? Are they creating unnecessary confusion? Are they allowing you, or are you allowing them to be the interruptions that are keeping you from your focus? So you have to be honest about that because that oftentimes an environment that doesn't support your goals will absolutely rob you of your productivity. And here's the thing about it. These 4 thieves are a little sneaky. So you have to really stop and think about it and raise your awareness around those 4 areas and ask yourself some questions. Am I struggling with saying no to things? Am I afraid to let some things slide when I put my focus on one thing, and doing that is going to become messy or chaotic? Do I have poor health habits that are not supporting me right now? And am I in an environment that doesn't support my goals or my productivity? And look, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to pick up and quit, but it might mean you have to make some changes, right? And so when you're aware, that's your opportunity. Awareness is always step one. Awareness is always your gift. And you can't do anything unless you become really aware and face it. And then step two is action. Then you have to do something about it. So, what is your one thing this week? If you can right now, write it down. If you're driving or doing something that prohibits you from writing it down, then come back to this episode. Promise yourself that you will, because I want you to know what is your one thing for this week. It's Monday morning. Let's get the week started. What is the one thing? Write it down. Now you're going to block time for it. So you're going to go to your calendar and block the time that it needs, which you're going to have to ask yourself some honest questions about that too. This may not be something you can do in 15 or 30 minutes. It might take more time than you are normally giving it. So be honest about the time that it needs, and if it needs to show up every day or not. Like a lead generation could be your one thing. That's got to show up probably every day. Now that you block time for it, you have to guard it. You have to protect that time. You have to be committed to it and show up for yourself like nothing else matters. Whatever that one thing is, it matters to you. So show up and be committed to it. And I'll just say this, you don't need a million productivity tools. I know that there are apps and programs and spreadsheets and lots of things. It just starts with you. It starts with how we want to think about this. And it starts with our desire for clarity. So if you know you need focus, you know you need clarity. And then it's the courage, right? It's the courage it takes to choose what matters most, even when it might be uncomfortable, even when the one thing that you have focused on in this conversation might even seem hard. It's not hard. It's just something you have to figure out, right? So, what if we could stop looking at things as easy or hard? What if we could look at things as, levels of needing to figure it out, right? Levels of peeling it back and figuring it out. And remember, it's the small steps. So it's only hard because you're looking at the whole thing. If you could just focus on what's one small step I could take today, right? So again, it's just the need to focus, be clear, and have some courage to do whatever it is because you know it matters. Because remember, success is not about being busy, it is about being intentional. So, if this episode fired you up a little, do me a favor and share it with someone who needs to hear it too. And maybe those people that you share it with, or that one person you share it with, could be an accountability partner. Maybe you work on some of this together. So go ahead and share it with someone who needs to hear it too. And I appreciate that. So until next time, just keep aiming higher, keep doing the work. And just remember, big results come from small, focused actions done with intention. And you've got this. I'll talk to you soon.